Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Okay, on this episode, I have to do something I'm not looking forward to, and that is probably shattering someone's dreams. And I'm just putting that out there because there is a mentality that can develop, especially in a younger person, where they don't see what's going on in a relationship. They can't really tell what's unfolding before them because they haven't had enough relationship experience. They haven't had enough people in their life to either be successful in relationships or a failure in relationships. And when you don't have enough relationship experience, then you might end up falling for someone that can be unhealthy and be toxic for you. Now, this isn't everyone. I know people that have met in high school and they are each other's soulmates, they would say. And they grew up and they're married and everything is wonderful. And this can happen. When you can find someone and have an amazing relationship and not know what it's like in the world with people that are unhealthy or toxic, because you found someone that you really relate to and you treat each other well and everything's healthy and good. But what happens when you don't have enough experience, or you've been in a couple or 3 or 4 long-term relationships, and then you meet someone that doesn't have your best interest in mind? What do you do then? How do you know that you're in a bad relationship? Because your experience may be that you've not had people treat you in a bad way. You haven't had people that have been harmful to you or toxic in your life in any way. And when you haven't had that, then you don't really know what to look for. Now, I'm going to read you an email, and this is where I'm kind of going to. And the person that sent me this email, I know she's listening right now, and I imagine she's probably feeling a little bit nervous about what I'm going to say. But this is important to know for you, no matter what age you are, that some things can change and some things can't. That doesn't mean they won't. I'm just putting that out there to say that some things can't change in order for you to develop a belief system that helps you get through what you need to get through. Because let's just say that you have a relationship where someone is showing up in a harmful way. You know, they're being emotionally abusive, they're being manipulative, they're being controlling, they're lying. You know, however they're showing up, it is not healthy for the relationship. If they're showing up in that way, and you think that perhaps this is just a phase or just a moment and they won't behave this way in the future because, you know, add something there, like we're going to have kids, we're going to move in together, we're going to get married. This type of behavior that you're seeing now, when you add any other commitments, you've probably heard me say this before, it amplifies those behaviors. Any other commitment in your life will amplify what you're already seeing, and it will only get more intense. Now, if you're having a great relationship and there are no issues and you're seeing things prosper and grow and move in a positive direction all the time, then any commitments usually amplify that as well. And that can be very satisfying. That can be very fulfilling. But don't see a commitment as something that's going to change what's happening. Just see it as what's going to amplify what's happening. So like I said, some things can change and some things can't. When you look at it that way, then you can come to a more absolute decision in your life. Because if you hold on to an idea that something perhaps will change, or you hope they will change, or you have faith they will change, that's when we start to get into the danger zone, where our thinking causes us to stay in situations that aren't healthy for us. Because if you're with someone that's treating you badly and it's not getting better, it's only getting worse, or it just never changes, and that person is not interested in improving themselves, or they say they're interested in improving themselves, but they never do, or they talk a lot and never take action. You just have to look at it as that person won't change. They won't. And when you look at it that way, then it comes back to you and you have to take responsibility for what happens next. If you instead say to yourself, well, he or she shows up in other ways that are nice, and maybe this is just going to resolve itself in some way, or maybe he or she will see how bad I feel and they'll feel so bad that I feel bad that they will then go get help or realize that they're hurting me, so they'll stop. If you haven't seen that before, you're not going to see it. Again, this is only about developing a belief system in you so that you take action and you take responsibility and you do things that are right for you. Because if you bet on someone else changing and have faith that they will, then what you end up doing is waiting forever while you suffer. So, this is a little bit controversial because somebody might tell me, well, people can change. They can get help. They can discover themselves. And I agree. I mean, I was that person. I was emotionally abusive in my marriage, and it took the divorce for me to change. But that's it. If we didn't get divorced, I wouldn't have changed because there was no loss. There was no threat of loss. There was no accountability because she was always there. And when she finally said, look, I'm not in love with you anymore, and the divorce was pending, I had a lot of realizations. But I wouldn't have had those had we not gone through that. And also, I wouldn't have had those had I had no access to empathy. Empathy is key. When you're in a relationship with anyone, empathy is key. You have to have an empathetic partner. If they're hurting you in any way or making you feel bad or they see you crying, you're going to have one of several responses. And the response that you don't want to see is them feeling smug and proud that they're right and you're crying. I mean, that could happen in a moment. That could happen in an argument. But who are they a few minutes later when they go, oh, geez, I didn't mean to make you feel bad, and I feel so bad that I made you cry. I'm so sorry. Are they that person? And are they genuine if they are that person? And are they making up for it? And are they showing up in other ways to show you that, yes, I do feel bad and I never want to make you feel that way again? Or do they continue to do the same thing later on and give you that good feeling because they apologized and then that bad feeling because they're behaving just like they did before? It's that love and abuse. It's that traumatic bonding. It's the back and forth, that roller coaster that takes you in and out of feeling good and feeling bad. And you start to go crazy. It is like being gaslighted. It's like being led on to believe everything's good just to have the rug pulled out from under you. And when that rug is pulled out, it hurts. It hurts so much that you end up looking for a sign of hope, a positive thing from the other person. And then that positive thing, that positive sign comes through, and that hope becomes fulfilled, and then you reconnect. But you still have this underlying trigger state, this sensitivity that things are going to go bad again. But you put a lot of your faith and your hope and your love back into the relationship, wanting it to be something that maybe it isn't. And this is why you need to be very aware and almost step out of yourself to look at the situation and see what's going on. Look at that trend line. Has that trend line been improving week after week after month after year? Is it going up and to the right? Is it always progressing? Or at least a steady line that, hey, things are pretty good now. That steady line feels pretty good. Let's keep going that way. Or is it a roller coaster? I mean, you might have to literally draw this out. How was yesterday? Was it up or down? How was today? Was it up or down? How was last week? Think of the events in your life and just draw this trend line. How does it look? I think a good, healthy relationship is going to have a couple big ups and downs here and there, but it's going to be mostly steady and probably going up and to the right. If you've been married for 50 years, that might be different. The longer you are married, that it might be a lot different. There might be a lot of more ups and downs, but the trend line should not be a daily or weekly big up and big down. It shouldn't be that way. I'm not saying you use this as your only guide. I'm just saying, create this visual either on paper or in your head. Just to see it, just to look at it and understand where you are, what the status of the relationship is. It'll give you an idea of what you might be going through and what there is to look forward to. And looking forward in a positive or negative way. I mean, what there is to come. If you know what there is to come, then you're a little better prepared. But what are you stepping into? What are you going to expose yourself to? Or if you have kids, expose you and your kids to. And you need to remember this dichotomy in thinking that I introduced earlier, that some people will change and some people won't. You got to take the word hope out of this sometimes and remove the comment, I hope they'll change. Because hope isn't action. Hope is something in the future. It's future-based. What you need to look at is what's happening today and what has happened over the past few weeks, months, and years. So this might all sound depressing to you. I don't mean it to be, but this is how we understand where we are so we don't stay in a bad situation or we figure out how to change a bad situation. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to read this email, and I'll take out the details so that it doesn't identify who this person is, so they keep their privacy. But it's an important email. It's an important message, and when I read it, I had to come on the air right away and just talk about it. So here we go. This person writes, I hope you can answer a question regarding navigating my relationship path. I'm in turmoil, and it has a correlation to affecting my current career path. I've been with my boyfriend for many years, and he just closed on a house in another city. We have had a long-distance relationship for the past few years. I'm in my early 20s. He's older than me, and he's in a different stage in life than I am as far as financial stability and things that come up with being older than I am and dating someone who's achieved so much while I'm trying to get my life together and get a full-time job. Last year, I found some hurtful and disturbing information in his phone and computer, which was just him dealing with other women. That led to a big fallout in which I flew back home. For the first time in all of our fallouts, he actually fought for me. This was not like him at all. I felt powerful, I won't lie. He addressed all my concerns and begged and did what he could to get me back, literally. I couldn't believe it was him. We pretty much promised to each other that we were committed to one another only. He addressed all of the messages and clarified anything that I asked him. And so we agreed to communicate better and bang out any issues that came up. Even though we moved forward with the relationship, everything that happened led me to have trust issues, insecurity issues, triggers, and more questions when I saw things that were off or seemed like he was up to no good again. The communication from him worsened, and it was like his promises to work on that communication just weren't relevant anymore. Now, any little thing that I ask him about, I'm very soft-spoken, I don't get angry or loud, I'm harmless. He instantly gets frustrated and blows up and says I'm negative and worried about the wrong things. I really can't talk to him about any concerns of mine. When I feel uneasy about something or begin to suspect something, I ask him like an adult should without accusing, yet he always blows up and says that I'm just making things negative and I'm the only negative thing in his life. Clearly he isn't listening to me and I plan on moving in with him, but I don't want to move and nothing changes. How can I get through to him? Please help me. It's been emotional abuse at this point, and he doesn't see that. All right, there's the email, and I want to thank this person. I'm going to call you Janet. I want to thank you, Janet, for writing this. And I also want you to know that what I am about to say is out of love and respect for you and wanting the best for you. And I want to also highlight what you said at the very end. It's been emotional abuse, so you know you've been in an emotionally abusive situation. You know about emotional abuse. That's a good start. So let me say this. There's several things that stood out in your email. One of them is something that really concerns me is that every time you ask him about something or comment about something, he gets highly defensive. Now, this is a big problem because people who want to do what they want, who want to have their cake and eat it too, who want to get away with things, will become highly defensive because they don't want to have to answer for it. They get defensive because it's a lot easier to, sorry to say, shut you up. It's a lot easier to control the person they're with if they just get angry because nobody wants to deal with an angry person. And so what's the best way to shut someone up? It's just to get angry. I can't believe you always ask me about that stuff. You're so sensitive. You're just always negative. And he puts the blame back on you for bringing up legitimate things. Now, that's a key word in there, legitimate things. Even if he is completely faithful to you, you're still bringing up legitimate concerns that you have. They bother you. This is where the empathy comes back in. An empathetic partner will say, oh my God, I didn't realize it bothered you that much. I will definitely not talk to that person anymore. I don't want to cause upset for you. You are more important to me than anyone else. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is that every time you comment on something, he brings the focus back on you, so you focus on what you're doing, quote, wrong. And if you are focused on what you're doing wrong, it takes your attention off of him. And then you find yourself trying to figure out how you can show up differently. How can I show up differently? How can I be nicer? How can I approach him in a different way? And so that's one of the things showing up in your email that is a huge red flag to me. Huge red flag. And what is it a red flag for? It is one of those things that won't change. If he has something going on in his life that he doesn't want you to know about, this is the way he's going to be. Because he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to get away with whatever he's doing. And he doesn't care enough about your feelings to discuss what he's doing. And he may not want you to be upset because maybe he is, sorry to say, continuing to communicate with people that you don't want him to communicate with. Again, he could be perfectly faithful, but he's got this, secret life that he doesn't want you to ask him about. So he puts that out there and makes you feel bad about yourself. And so now you're focused on you again. So that's one thing. Another thing is, and this might be one of those dream-shattering comments, and I'm really sorry, it's when you said he fought for you. It's when you said that it made you feel powerful. Like someone would stand up and say, no, I want this relationship, and I want you, and I'll do anything it takes. Anything. I want you to know that some of the other signs that you've given in this email, they all add up to someone who's so fearful of losing control of you that they will sound completely genuine and empathetic and so concerned and worried that that's how they come across. They don't want to lose control of you. If you leave, it's a big slap in the face to their ego. It is going to destroy him to not have control over you so that he can keep this world that he's creating together. This world of, and I'm just going to make something up, I'm not saying this is true, this world of I have this woman over here and this woman over there, and I have you in the place I need, and if I lose you, then I have to recreate a whole new world with somebody else and figure out some sort of control structure again. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I have no idea. But it is very common that someone that has these other tendencies with the high defensiveness, with having no problem hiding his communications with other people, showing up in an unempathetic way, not worried about you feeling bad about yourself, not worrying that he caused you to feel bad or said things that made you feel bad. These little signs that all compound into something bigger. You add on top of that someone who suddenly comes to the realization that he's got the best thing in the world. That's great when you have a healthy relationship and someone's willing to fight for you and be there for you if they follow through. But your next few sentences are talking about those same red flags coming up again, which tells me that it was an act. That doesn't mean you're not worth fighting for. That doesn't mean you're worth everything and that you're not a wonderful person that deserves an amazing relationship. It just means he could be putting on an act so he doesn't lose control over you. So I realize that might be depressing to hear, but I need you to know this. I need you to know what might be happening here, because someone who actually means all this stuff, all the stuff that he said, like, I'm so sorry and I'm going to fight for you and I'm going to fight for this relationship, is going to continue trying to work on the relationship, continue trying to work on himself, continue showing up in a way that he knows you love, respect, support, appreciate, and want more of. That's what people do in relationships. Healthy relationships consist of both people showing up in a way that shows the other person that they care about them, that they love them, that they want them to be happy, that they support their journey, that they don't want to be the one that causes the other one to feel bad. It's about how your partner shows up so that you can look up to them and respect them and love them and just be so impressed by them. Not all the time. We don't always impress our partners, but we can at least look at them and realize, wow, I really have someone special in my life because they care about me and they care how I feel. What I've seen in many, many severely emotionally abusive relationships is that there's a good actor. The actor really shows up and pretends to care so much. And a lot of the times in the beginning of those relationships, there's a lot of love bombing and gift bombing. And that's when you just overdo the love and throw a lot of compliments and say how wonderful a person you are, how attractive you are, and how you're the one and you're the love of my life. And there's a lot of the stuff that comes early on in the relationship. And it's really like love fishing, where you're putting the hook out there and just snagging someone with all this positivity because you know that's what they want to hear, and you know that's how they want to feel. They want to be swept off their feet. So some people get swept off their feet, and once that stage is over, then it's like a free pass to be more controlling or more emotionally abusive or manipulative or any of a number of unhealthy ways they can show up. So Janet, when he fought for you, when he said he wanted to make this right, he wanted to keep you, it doesn't mean there wasn't genuine affection for you. But from what I've seen, this is almost always an attempt to keep control of the relationship. It's one of the many tools that someone can use because they know that once they use this, once they show up this way, that the other person's going to feel just like you did. They're going to feel wanted. They're going to feel important. And the only reason I'm shattering your dream like this is because of your follow-ups, because that you said the red flags showed up again. You didn't call them red flags. I'm calling them red flags. You said that this behavior showed up again. So this behavior is your gauge. This behavior is your guide. This repetitive behavior doesn't change. It only transforms. It morphs. It adapts from your responses. Because what could happen in the future is, let's say you threaten to leave. Suddenly, he turns on the charm again, or he turns on the begging again, or he cries. He plays a victim. And I'm not saying this couldn't happen in a healthy relationship too, but you have to add up all the components. This is why emotional abuse is so elusive. It's so covert, is that you can't really tell in the moment from a single component that something bad is going on. But you take this behavior and this behavior and this behavior, and suddenly you have a bigger picture. This is what I do. I try to put together all these pieces and make a picture. And the picture you just sent me in this email, there's a lot of red flags. There's a lot of pieces in there that tell me that your life with him is not going to get any better. That doesn't mean you should listen to me. That doesn't mean that I'm telling you what to do. But I see this unfolding in a way that is not good for you, because one of the things that you said is you're going to move in with him. He lives in a different city. You'd be going into a place that I think you told me that you don't know anybody there. So if you haven't heard my episode on isolation, you need to right away, because that is the first step in isolation, or at least one of the steps in isolation, is that they take you away from your support structure, from the people that love you, from maybe your work, this whole structure of love and support that you have around you that you can go to anytime, you will not have access to anymore. The only person that is supposed to love and support you might be the same person that is being abusive towards you. This is what happens, is that some people get into a situation where they're stuck with the person that is not only isolating and abusing them, but also is their only provider for love and support. And you know why that's not a good combination. It's that roller coaster, and it will eat away at you. It does eat away at your insides and just hollows you out. It's a pretty graphic way to say it, but it's like eating away at your emotional core until all you have left is a shell of who you were. Not a pretty picture, I know. So the last thing I want to comment on is that let's look at who attracts who and what attracts what. And what I mean by that is, I often find I almost always see this type of relationship form. A meek, submissive, kind, generous, supportive, caring, empathetic person will meet someone that likes to control, that likes to manipulate, that likes to coerce. I'm not saying that every type of kind, caring, supportive, empathetic person always meets a controller, but these are the type of people that are attracted to each other. The controller wants a submissive person. The submissive person doesn't know they're getting a controller. The submissive, kind, caring person thinks they're getting someone who is just like them and sweet and caring because of the initial stages of the relationship. The initial stages always tell you a lot. If there's too much of a good thing, it's something to question. I know it sounds like opposite. If there's too much of a good thing, that should be good, but it is something to question. Like my girlfriend got some crystal plates or something, or dishes, or a butter dish or something on her first date or second date with a guy before we met. And she was surprised and didn't know what to say because they were just starting to getting to know each other. And he bought her some crystal. It was just odd to her. But she didn't know about gift bombing back then. But after that date, she realized, I don't really want to see him anymore. And so she called him and said, I'm not really interested in seeing you anymore. And suddenly he was no longer that loving, kind, caring person. He was a real jerk. He was mean. He got angry that she wouldn't want to see him. He was offended that the gift didn't do it, And this is what happens with these people, is that once they lose control, their true colors show. Once they lose control, there's actually two things that happen. One is something that the person who wrote this email witnessed, is the fighting to keep what they have, fighting to keep that control, and showing up in a way that appears to be genuine and caring and loving. It appears that way. And the other way is getting angry and dismissive and cold. In fact, it almost seems like a bipolar response. It's either really good or really bad. It just seems like that bipolar response happens a lot the more people I talk to. I'll hear, oh, he or she is so nice. They always compliment me. They always buy me dinner. They always this and they always that. But as soon as they don't get what they want, they turn into a real jerk. They turn into this person that makes you feel guilty and bad about yourself. And you're wondering what you did wrong. And how could you do this to them? And what kind of person are you? And they'll throw all these things at you. And you're like, where did this come from? I must be doing something wrong. Because you're kind and caring. And you do check in with yourself to make sure that you're showing up in a good way. Think about that. I mean, if you check in with yourself, how come they're not checking in with themselves? When you check in with yourself and you say, I thought I did the right thing, what do they do? All they're doing is pointing the finger. They're not checking in going, well, I could have shown up a little differently. You're right. Let's have a conversation about that. I mean, that's how my girlfriend and I talk sometimes, is that it might get heated. Arguments are part of relating when you're in relationships. And so when we're talking about something, it might get heated. And when it gets heated, I'm still listening, even though I'm still fired up. I'm still hearing what she has to say. And even though I want to make my point and feel right, I will back down and say, yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. And then I'll stop and she'll back off a little bit because she doesn't want to hurt me. We don't want to hurt each other. We don't want to make each other feel bad. We just want to get our point across. We want to make sure that the other person knows what we're experiencing, what we're thinking. And then usually when one person backs off, the other one does too. And then we feel like, okay, and then we calm down and then we can talk about it more rationally and reasonably. And it doesn't happen often. But when it does, it's nice to know that we can both get fired up, even get angry, and still listen and still be reasonable. I think that's a good way to communicate. You talked about communicating, Janet, and that right there, when you can still be angry, still be allowed to be angry, and still be allowed to be suspicious. Like one of the things that you said is that I found stuff on his computer last year, and it makes you suspicious. If my girlfriend found stuff on my computer last year, and I was apologetic and I felt bad about it, and I promised her it would never happen again, I'm going to make sure that no matter how many times she asks, that I want her to feel comfortable. I want her to feel like she has absolutely every right to question me. I mean, I would never do this, but I'm trying it on here to see if I was that person, what would I do? If I wanted to make sure that my girlfriend felt very comfortable around me and prove to her that I'm not doing anything outside the relationship boundaries, I'm going to make sure that every time she mentions it, I'll say, oh, absolutely. Here, check my computer. I don't want you to have any suspicion whatsoever. What he's doing to you, Janet, is allowing your suspicion to stay alive. He's avoiding the subject. He's putting it back on you, making you feel guilty, and he's keeping it alive. And you might have to get angry. You might have to break this pattern of yours of staying silent, of staying quiet. I'm not saying you have to, and I'm not saying it'll be effective. I'm just saying that he is taking advantage of that. He knows that you won't speak up. It sounds like you really won't stand up and say, no, I really suspect something here. I don't want you to avoid this topic. You show me your phone right now. I mean, if you said that, that might change things. I don't know. Right now, I do believe that you are not in a very good situation, and I don't see it changing, and I do see it getting worse if you move in. I hate to give you that news. I really do. But, you wrote to me, you asked my opinion, and you have every right to say, Paul doesn't know what he's talking about, and I'm just going to go forward with it. Totally up to you. I'm just hoping that you hear my words and even maybe sleuth a little bit, be a detective. And I won't go into too much detail about that, but I don't like lingering suspicions myself. I need to know if my suspicions are right. I'm not telling you how to do that, and I'm not going to get into any more detail. You just have to figure that out. But sometimes we need to prove to ourselves that someone isn't who they say they are. So before I go, you did ask, how can I get through to him? And I don't know if I can answer that, because if he has an agenda, if he wants to control you, then no matter what you do, he will adapt and try to find a way to placate you. Now, he's being highly defensive, so that's another way to placate you. It's another way to keep you under control so that you don't go into depth about what he might be doing with his time. So, Janet, I'm so grateful that you wrote to me. I hope my words mean something to you here today. If you choose to follow them or not, this is your life. I want you to do the right thing for you. You make the decisions that work for you. You know your own situation. Just try on a future where nothing changes, just for a few minutes, where you move in, nothing changes, or maybe even gets worse, where you can't really say anything without him putting you in your place. Yes, I'm painting a negative picture, but the relationship that you described in your email, it worries me. And I hope this episode helps. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. If you want to pinpoint the exact behaviors causing the difficulties in your relationship, head over to loveandabuse.com. If you have the workbook and you want to join the secret Facebook group, write to me at paul@loveandabuse.com and tell me the email you used to purchase the workbook. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant because you are. Thank you for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.